The Cell Block Kings. Before we dive in, if you're ready for the darkest corners of America's prison underworld, hit subscribe, drop a like, and buckle in. What you're about to hear isn't fiction. These are the men who rule the penitentiary from the inside out. A siren wailed through the cold gray morning as guards sprinted across the yard of USP Florence. Their radio crackled, footsteps echoing against concrete walls stained by decades of violence. They weren't running toward a riot this time. They were running toward a body. The sun hadn't even risen, but the prison was already awake. Steel doors slammed shut like gunshots. Floodlights flickered across the yard. Inmates' faces appeared behind frosted glass, wide-eyed, hungry for answers. A man lay on the ground near the laundry building, blood pooling beneath him. His eyes were still open. A crude tattoo across his neck, a three-letter set that struck fear into almost every cell block. A B. Aryan Brotherhood. The dead man's name was Robert Crow Whitner, a foot soldier, a messenger, a man whose hands moved letters no one dared read, except the one he served. His murder wasn't random. It wasn't impulsive. It was a message, and the message was meant for one man, Barry the Baron Mills. Even locked inside the most secure federal facility in America, Mills commanded a level of influence investigators struggled to explain. They had documented it for years, coded letters, discreet hand signals, and conversations held through air vents. But this morning felt different. Whitner's body meant someone had crossed a line rarely tested inside Florence. The warden stepped toward the scene, taking in the sight of the body while keeping his face unreadable. "Lock it down," he muttered, though the order had already spread across the prison like wildfire. Every inmate was being secured, every door sealed. Inside the control unit, a section designed for the most dangerous of the dangerous, Mills sat at a steel table with a deck of cards spread neatly before him. His thin white hair tunneled over his forehead. A faint smile touched the corner of his mouth as guards stormed in. "You expecting company?" he asked, lifting his eyes with calm amusement. They didn't answer. They never answered him. Mills leaned back in his chair, watching them search his cell. Nothing was said, but everyone knew he understood exactly why they were there. Whitner's death was either an authorized at the kind that brought chaos or a carefully calculated strike directed by someone bold enough to challenge the old guard. For months, whispers had floated through Florence. Younger inmates were tired of the codes and alliances built decades before they even arrived. Some said the Aryan Brotherhood's hold was slipping. Others believed it was being tested by rival groups with shifting loyalties. But no one dared touch one of Mills' own. No one except someone desperate. Across the country, in Los Angeles, a detective named Jordan Reavers arrived at the headquarters of the Federal Bureau of Prisons Task Unit. He had spent 20 years tracking prison gang activity, with a deep focus on the Mexican mafia's operations in Southern California. He knew violence inside federal walls better than most, and when he heard the news over the radio, he froze mid-step. Whitner dead, Florence on lockdown, suspicion on the rise. And that meant one thing. If Mills' organization was destabilizing, then other prison factions were moving. And when they moved, violence didn't stay behind bars. It spilled into the streets. Reavers scanned the briefing files waiting on his desk, his eyes landing on a name he hadn't seen in months. Rene Boxer Enriquez. Once a high-ranking leader of the Mexican mafia, Enriquez had turned state witness and revealed secrets that law enforcement had never imagined were possible. His testimony changed the justice system's understanding of how prison power worked. But even behind protective walls, Enriquez had warned them. If the balance breaks, if someone decides to challenge a hierarchy, the consequences will echo everywhere inside, outside, and across every gang tied to the system. Reavers felt that echo now. Whitner's death wasn't local. It was systemic. Back inside Florence, special investigative agents questioned inmates, but nobody talked. Silence in these prisons wasn't just tradition, it was survival. Fear created order here, and Mills had mastered the art. But beneath the surface, there was instability. Rival groups smelled opportunity. In the SHU, an inmate named Luther Stone Daniels, a longtime associate of the DC Blacks, sat calmly at his table as guards entered to question him. He raised his eyes slowly, studying their faces, then returned to sharpening a pencil in perfect silence. Daniels wasn't known for impulsive violence, he was known for discipline. And discipline was often more dangerous. "Did you hear anything?" one of the guards asked. Daniels didn't look up. "I hear everything," he said, "but you'll have to be more specific." "Whitner," the guard pressed, "is death." Daniels paused mid-turn of the pencil sharpener. His voice remained low and steady. "There are three kinds of deaths in this place. The ones that come from chaos, the ones that come from betrayal, and the ones that come from overdue debts. Figure out which one you're dealing with." The guard stiffened. Daniels returned to his pencil. Across the tier, other inmates exchanged glances. The murder had stirred something deep fear mixed with expectation. Every gang watched, waiting for the next move, because in prison, violence rarely stood alone. It was always followed by a response. As the day progressed, Whitner's autopsy revealed something investigators didn't expect. His pockets were empty. No notes, no coded letters, nothing. But he was a messenger. He always carried something. Someone stole whatever message he was delivering. Someone who wanted it. By late afternoon, the warden received a report from a guard who inspected the laundry building where Whitner had been found. Behind one of the industrial dryers, tucked into a narrow metal gap, they recovered a torn piece of paper. Half of a message, half of a code. And it wasn't Aryan Brotherhood writing. The symbols didn't match their patterns. When they brought it to the warden, he stared for a long moment, weighing the meaning. The symbols were unmistakable, even half-burned. It belonged to another group, a group known to challenge power. And as the warden exhaled slowly, he said the words that would change everything. This wasn't a random hit. Someone inside this prison is targeting the men who run it. He folded the paper carefully. And this is only the beginning. The warden's office felt colder than usual as he stared at the half-burned paper recovered from the laundry building. His fingertips traced the strange symbols, lines, curves, and slash markings used only by one group known for absolute discipline and strategic violence. The Black Guerrilla Family. He lowered the paper onto his desk as a storm of dread settled over him. If the BGF had intercepted that message, then the Aryan Brotherhood wasn't just facing internal fractures, they were under attack. And when two prison empires collided, the walls around them were never strong enough to contain the fallout. By the time the sun dipped behind the Rockies, USP Florence had shifted from lockdown to suffocation. Every corridor echoed with the same question whispered through vents and scrawled onto scraps of toilet paper. Who killed Crow Whitner? And what message did he die for? Deep inside the control unit, Barry Mills sat motionless on his cot. For a man who had orchestrated operation from solitary confinement for decades, silence wasn't weakness, it was calculation. But tonight, even Mills looked older. The gray in his beard seemed sharper, the lines on his face deeper. He had the appearance of a man who saw the chessboard changing faster than he could move the pieces. He tilted his head slightly when the food slot slid open. A tray pushed through with a soft clatter. Bread, beans, a folded napkin. A folded napkin? Mills lifted it slowly, unfolding the thin paper. A single mark was drawn in pencil. A symbol, a warning. Two cross lines inside a circle. BGF. Mills exhaled. Not fear. Recognition. The BGF didn't send threats lightly. They sent statements. And this one was loud enough to shake even the most fortified corners of Florence. Across the prison, in the administrative wing, Special Agent Jordan Rivas stood over a whiteboard covered in inmate photos. Mills, Enriquez, Daniels, Hoover, branches of influence connecting inmates, gangs, cells, states. Rivas tapped the half-burned BGF message with a pen. Someone intercepted Whitner, he said. Someone with direct access to the yard. Someone who knew his route. A junior agent spoke up. The BGF hasn't moved against the AB in years, not since the late 90s. Rivas didn't look away from the board. They didn't have a reason to, until now. But why now? Another agent asked. Rivas finally turned, because the balance of power inside Florence is shifting. And when the balance shifts, history tells us something bigger is coming. He paused. Something planned. The room fell silent. Meanwhile, at USP Florence, Luther Stone Daniels sat on the edge of his bunk in the SHU, staring through the narrow slit of his cell door the whole way beyond. His breathing was steady, controlled, the kind of calm only a man with absolute internal discipline could maintain. When the guard slid his meal through the slot, Daniels didn't look up. "You hear the news?" the guard asked, trying to sound casual. Daniels lifted a brow. "I hear all news. AB says they're coming after anyone who touched Whitner." Daniels chuckled softly. "Let them come." The guard swallowed. The confidence in Daniels' voice wasn't bravado. He sounded like someone who already knew how the next 3 moves of the game would play out. Daniels leaned closer to the door. "A storm is coming to this place. But storms don't frighten men who bring their own thunder." As the guard stepped away, Daniels' eyes drifted to the upper corner of his cell. A tiny hole in the concrete, small enough to ignore, large enough to serve as a microphone for messages whispered across floors. He waited. Seconds passed. Then a faint voice traveled through the vent. "Phase 1 complete." Daniels closed his eyes. "Proceed." And just like that, the temperature inside USP Florence seemed to shift again. Back in Los Angeles, Rivas took a seat in a quiet interview room. A thick pane of bulletproof glass separated him from the man on the other side, a heavily guarded inmate whose testimony had once exposed one of the deadliest organizations in the country, Rene Boxer Enriquez. The former Mexican mafia leader leaned forward, his eyes sharp, almost sympathetic. "I heard about Florence," Enriquez said calmly. "Whitner wasn't killed for money. He wasn't killed for disrespect. He was killed for a reason. Someone wanted that message." Rivas folded his arms. "Who?" Enriquez laced his hands together. "You're asking the wrong question. It's not who, it's why." "Then tell me why." Enriquez studied him for a long moment before speaking. "The prison system is changing. Isolation units don't work the way they used to. Technology, corruption, communication, everything is different now. Power is shifting. The men who built these structures decades ago, they're losing control." He pointed subtly toward Mill's file. "When an empire starts to crack, predators don't wait. They move fast." Rivas frowned. "Predators like the BGF." A small smile crept across Enriquez's face. "The BGF is disciplined, strategic. If they intercepted an AB message, it wasn't random. It was calculated. They are sending a message back. Your time is up." "And Daniels?" Rivas asked. "What's his role?" Enriquez leaned back in his chair. "Daniels is not just a soldier. He's a thinker, a strategist. If he's involved, then this isn't an attack. It's a takeover." Rivas felt the hairs on his arms rise. A takeover inside Florence was unthinkable. Unthinkable, and yet, for the first time, frighteningly plausible. That night, inside the prison, 2 guards walking Tier 3 noticed something strange. Every inmate on the row was awake. Standing, silent, not moving, a line of statues behind steel doors. The guard shined his flashlight. "Back to your bunks." No one moved. No one blinked. A slow, rhythmic tapping echoed from somewhere deep in the unit. Tap, 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 tap. The second guard stiffened. "That's a signal." The first guard reached for his radio, but before he could call it in, an officer's voice burst through the speaker system. "All units prepare for emergency protocol. We have a situation in the control unit." Inside that unit, Barry Mills sat at his desk, staring at a hole in the corner of his own cell. The same tiny vent that carried news across the prison. A soft voice drifted through it. "You held the throne for a long time, Baron." Mills froze. "But this kingdom has a new ruler now." Mills' chest tightened. "And the message Whitner carried, it was meant for you." Silence. Then the voice whispered 3 chilling words. "Phase 2 begins." The lights in the control unit flickered, and the entire prison trembled as if something massive had finally moved. The tremor that shook USP Florence wasn't an earthquake. It was the unmistakable shudder of a prison shifting into crisis. Lights flickered along the corridors, alarms stuttered, and the hum of the ventilation system pulsed like a heartbeat speeding toward panic. Inside the control unit, Barry the Bear Mills stood up for the first time in hours. His palms pressed against the cold concrete wall. The voice through the vent echoed in his mind. Phase 2 begins. Mills had survived wars inside these walls, race wars, gang wars, power wars, but this felt different. This felt personal. For decades, he had controlled operations through whispers and coded letters. But now, Someone else was speaking through the same channels he once owned. Someone organized. Someone bold enough to challenge the empire he built. In the SHU, Luther Stone Daniels stood calmly as guards rushed down the hallway. Their radios barked frantic updates. Emergency protocol. Control unit breach detected. Repeat, possible infiltration of the ventilation system. Lockdown on all tiers. Daniels tilted his head back, listening. Every sound, every footstep, every vibration. He knew the layout of Florence better than most guards. He knew where the walls were thin, which corridors had blind spots, and which locks were older than the men who operated them. He also knew Mills would now realize the truth. The BGF wasn't just issuing warnings. They were orchestrating a shift in power so precise that Florence itself became a chessboard, and every inmate, every guard, every locked door was a piece. Daniels felt the tremor under his feet. The signal. Phase 2 wasn't violence. Not yet. Phase 2 was destabilization. Across the country, Jordan Rivas rushed out to the interview room where Enriquez had just delivered the warning that would keep him awake for days. Rivas grabbed his phone, dialing Florence directly. When the warden answered, the panic in his voice confirmed Rivas' worst fear. Mills is being targeted. The warden said breathlessly, the BGF is moving inside the control unit. We've lost communication across 2 floors. They are using the ventilation system to pass messages. It's coordinated. Rivas closed his eyes. This is the takeover Enriquez was talking about. This is something else, the warden snapped. This is an internal coup. Rivas grabbed his jacket. I'm flying out now. Keep everyone secured. The warden scoffed. Secured? There is no secured in this situation. Not with men like these. Back inside Florence, the temperature dropped again. The sharp smell of metal mixed with a cold, sterile scent of concrete. Guards sprinted through the corridors, but the inmates remained eerily composed. No shouting, no banging on doors. Just silence. Silence was always more dangerous. In his cell, Daniels finally rose. He walked to the door with slow, deliberate steps, placing his palm against the steel. He waited until he heard the faintest whisper from the vent across the hall. It's time. Daniels closed his eyes. Open the line. That was the moment the prison's emergency lights cut out. For 3 full seconds, USP Florence plunged into complete darkness. And in that darkness, everything changed. When backup lights flickered on, guards found chaos, but not the kind they expected. Not riots. Not broken doors. Not bodies in the hallway. It was coordinated confusion. Locks jammed. Cameras disabled. 2 tiers blocked by objects deliberately wedged into gear mechanisms. And in the control unit, something worse. Mills' door was open an inch. Not enough to release him, but enough to terrify everyone. Someone had tampered with the locking mechanism. Someone who wanted Mills to know he wasn't safe. 3 guards surrounded his cell. Back away from the door. Mills. He didn't move. He stared at them through the crack. You're looking in the wrong direction, he said. The youngest guard swallowed. What? Mills tilted his head toward the far end of the unit. If they wanted me dead, I wouldn't be talking to you. The guard frowned. Then what do they want? Mills gave a chilling half-smile. They want the crown. At that exact moment, alarm screamed again, this time signaling movement in the yard. Guards rushed to the monitors, and what they saw made their blood run cold. On the rec yard under harsh lights, 3 inmates stood perfectly still in the center of the concrete. Not fighting, not threatening, standing like statues. 1 white, 1 black, 1 Latino, an Aryan Brotherhood member, a BGF soldier, a Mexican mafia affiliate. Together, that never happened. Not without permission from the highest ranks. The warden's voice trembled. This is a show of force. No, one officer said quietly. It's a warning. Back in the SHU, Daniels placed both hands against the wall, as though feeling the pulse of the prison. He inhaled deeply, then spoke softly, knowing the vent would carry every word exactly where it needed to go. Your time is over. Baron, the new order begins tonight. Mills heard the whisper through his vent. His jaw clenched. Decades of dominance, manipulation, and fear challenged by a man he once dismissed as a disciplined foot soldier. He called out through the cracked door, "Daniels, you think you can run this place?" His voice echoed, "I built these structures. I set the rules. There is no Florence without me." A faint chuckle traveled through the vent. "That's a lie you tell yourself." Mills slammed his palm against the door. "You'll never hold it." Daniel's voice grew colder. "I don't need to hold it. I just need to break it." Silence. Then Daniels whispered the final line, "And everyone will follow the man who breaks the throne." At that moment, in the yard, the 3 inmates who'd been standing motionless finally moved, each raising a fist to their chest. A signal, one understood by every gang leader in America's prisons. An alliance, not peace. A recalibration of power. When Reavers finally arrived at Florence hours later, the prison was on full gridlock lockdown. Hundreds of guards, federal agents, tactical teams. The warden met him with heavy eyes. "It wasn't violence," the warden said. "It wasn't a riot. It was a demonstration. A coordinated message." Reavers glanced at the surveillance footage. 3 factions' historic enemies standing in alignment, and a whisper from multiple informants repeated the same phrase. "There's a new power coming." Inside the control unit, Mills sat alone. The crack in his door had been sealed, the vent monitored, the cell reinforced. But the damage wasn't physical. It was symbolic. He knew it. Daniels knew it. Florence knew it. As dawn crept across the yard, the prison looked normal again. Doors locked, lights stable, inmates quiet. But underneath the surface, something irreversible had shifted. The old kings were losing their thrones. The new order wasn't fully visible yet, but everyone could feel its shadow stretching through every tear. Before leaving the yard, Reavers stood at the fence, staring into the labyrinth of steel and razor wire. The air felt heavier. They thought locking these men up was enough, he said quietly. But some prisons don't contain power. They incubate it. He turned away. And this time, the power has decided to change hands. As he walked toward the gate, an officer approached, holding a small object. "So, this was found in the laundry building this morning." Reavers took it. Another torn message. Same BGF symbols. Same handwriting. Only 2 words were written. Phase 3. Reavers exhaled slowly. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. "If you thought this story was intense," he muttered under his breath, "you're not ready for what's coming next." And somewhere deep inside USP Florence, Daniel smiled. The new era had begun.